You're watching Utah's #1 news station. This is 2 News at 5.
2 innocent children intentionally take them. It's just unthinkable.
Family members mourn the deaths of 2 innocent children, Charlie and Braden Powell. The boys' grandfather says their killer, Josh Powell, was cowardly.
Thanks for tuning into 2 News at 5 tonight. Disturbing new developments today about Josh Powell's premeditated plan to kill himself and his children, 7-year-old Charlie and 5-year-old Braden.
2 new emails have surfaced, and there is some new chilling information from the crime scene. We do have team coverage on this story. Roxanne Vainuku has more on those cryptic emails that Josh Powell sent to his family and friends. Lad Egan looks into why visitation was allowed on Josh Powell's turf.
Yeah, and Dan Rascone with the latest new information from Powell's burned-out house today. And Chris Jones with some reaction from the Powell and Cox families. We're going to start with Chris. You had a chance to talk with them today. What are they saying, Chris?
Well, we talked with Chuck Cox earlier today. He, of course, is the grandfather of Braden and Charlie. He is, of course, the father of Susan Cox Powell, who has been missing since September of 2009. You can imagine he is shocked and simply stunned.
Things were quiet, and so I came up, and the last time I saw them, they were laying in the beds, scrunched up, sleeping, and just fine.
Chuck Cox just had to sneak one more peek at his 2 grandsons the night before they were to see their father, this time for the very last time.
Our focus was to try and give the boys the best life we could and most normal life we could, and he took the boys, took away their innocence, their lives.
Tonight, Cox is remembering their innocence and, more importantly, talking about their memories. When they first came to him, their mother seemed not to exist to the children at all.
When they first came, they didn't say very much and didn't know much about Mom and didn't care, or they just didn't say anything about her. It was like they were not allowed to say her name.
Over time, however, the boys began to embrace their mother and long to have her back.
From going to not talking to about her to want to help find her, and we have little ribbons and things that we've been using for the last 2 years. And he wanted one, so he wanted to wear a ribbon.
With the passage of time, the boys, particularly 7-year-old Charlie, began to recall that mysterious night in December of 2009 when his mom would vanish.
He knew he had a mommy that loved him.
The Cox's family attorney tells our sister station in Seattle that the boys talked about their mommy being, quote, in a trunk and getting lost in the desert. Cox stops just short of confirming that.
On occasion, they'd talk about last time they saw Mommy, and he would say, well, it was when we went camping. I said, well, I thought Mommy stayed home, and then he would shut up again.
Now, of course, there are 2 families that are affected by this, the Powell family as well. We were at the home of Stephen Powell. Of course, he's in jail on voyeurism charges, but his daughter as well as his son remain there. Alina spoke with us briefly today. Coming up at 6 o'clock, you'll hear what she had to say. Back to you.
All right, Chris Jones. Thank you, Chris, live in Washington tonight.
We are starting to get a more clear picture of Josh Powell's plan to kill himself and his children.
Well, he apparently took steps to alert friends and even tie up some personal issues before that double murder suicide.
Dan Rascone live in Graham, Washington. And Dan, investigators are saying that this was indeed premeditated. It was a planned out event to end all 3 lives.
Yeah, we're learning some more disturbing details here, Mark and Sean, about what happened here at Josh Powell's house moments before that explosion happened. Of course, we're learning a little bit more about the accelerant that was used. Also, some of the emails apparently that he sent out to other people before this explosion actually took place. We're also waiting for autopsy reports, but more and more evidence coming out.
There was no gunshot wounds on the victims.
More details still coming in.
There's no indication about Susan in anything that we've found so far.
Here at what used to be the home of Josh Powell, now it's become a double murder-suicide crime scene. This is where investigators say Josh Powell used 10 gallons of gasoline to blow up himself and his 2 children, young 7-year-old Charlie and 5-year-old Braden.
We found 2 5-gallon cans of gas. One of them was with the bodies. The other one, we believe, was spread throughout the house. There was accelerants throughout the whole entire house.
Investigators say from the evidence it's very clear that this event was well planned.
We believe he planned this event out, and he had taken certain steps They'd taken boxes of toys and books and donated them to the Goodwill.
It was about 1:30 yesterday afternoon when the social worker came to the home and dropped the two boys off. Josh then locked the door on the social worker, and minutes later, the home exploded.
It's a sad day.
There's no way to explain it. Complete and utter disarray.
Here at Emma Carlson Elementary School, a tough and emotional day. This is where little Charlie was supposed to be reporting to first grade. Parents are having a hard time trying to explain to their kids what happened here in this charred-out home.
I just told them it's hard for even adults to understand. There's no way to explain it other than to just know that they're in a better place with their mother right now.
He's sad, and he realizes Charlie's desk is going to be empty. He said it's going to be empty forever, and he said that Charlie was the smartest kid in his class.
So you could see the difficulty that many of the community are going through right now. A lot of neighbors, of course, around this place coming out to be able to see now that they've been able to get a clearer view as to what this house looks like after the destruction here. But again, young Charlie, 7 years old, Braden just 5 years old, inside this home, all together in the same room there. They're not telling us exactly where they were at, but apparently, again, that gasoline being used to cause the explosion. The autopsy report now, we're being told, may not come out until tomorrow, the results as to how they died. But again, no gunshot wounds or no gunshots heard at this location. Mark, Shauna, back to you.
All right, Dan, thank you very much.
One big question that people are asking is why the courts allowed these supervised visits to take place at Josh Powell's home.
Yeah, some are suggesting the visits should have taken place at a neutral location, like maybe a community center or some other public place.
Ladd Egan live at the Department of Child and Family Services. And Ladd, was this normal protocol to have the visits at Josh's home?
Yeah, Mark and Shauna, both authorities here in Utah and in Washington State say yes, that most of the time supervised visitations took place at the home of the non-custodial parent. What's more, they say they had no evidence to restrict Josh's access to Charlie and Braden. But in light of what happened, the Children's Administration in Washington State has launched 2 child fatality reviews to find out what, if anything, could have been done differently.
It makes sense to have visits there.
Liz Solis works with Utah's Department of Child and Family Services, and while not directly involved with the Powell case, she says it's normal to have supervised visits in the home.
The home is the best setting and the most natural setting for a family to reunify.
However, Solis says that with credible concern for safety, the visits should be moved somewhere more public.
There are times when we've had workers go to restaurants, go bowling with the family.
She's here to supervise the visit, and that's been done before.
Authorities in Washington say they would have done something different had they known Josh was suicidal or thinking of harming his boys.
A social worker's job isn't to fight or wrestle with Josh and get physical with them about the kids.
And Washington's Children's Department says the social worker who brought the boys to the home was helpless to stop Josh.
She's traumatized in this whole thing, and it doesn't matter who was here, this was going to happen.
Authorities in Washington say the fact that Josh was the main person of interest in his wife's disappearance was not enough to stop the visits. Josh seemed to impress the social workers. In court filings, he says they praised his parenting during the supervised visits. And in his last court filing, dated February 1st, he bragged, "I have proven myself as a fit and loving father who provides a stable home." But that stable home blew up, and that loving father, police say he did it.
Nobody could have predicted that this would happen.
And Child Protective Services point out that Josh had sole custody of his 2 boys since Susan disappeared back in December of 2009, and that he only lost custody because of the criminal charges filed against his father. And Mark and Shauna, that's when Josh moved out, got his own rented place so he could start having these supervised visits. They lasted 4 hours each, and they happened twice a week. Back to you.
All right, Ladd, thanks.
Or some more new information, new emails that have been surfacing today that were sent by Josh Powell moments before the violent explosion that killed himself and the boys.
Roxanne Vainuku got a hold of some emails and also a voice message from Josh Powell that was sent to friends and family all over the country. She joins us now live from the newsroom. And Roxanne, who got these messages?
Shauna, Mark, a cousin of Josh Powell's who lives in Texas, says he got a series of messages that made it clear something was very wrong. Nathan Leach provided our partners at the Salt Lake Tribune a timeline of the events and described the family's frantic attempts to get help to Josh Powell's house.
It's 12:02 in Texas, the home of Josh Powell's cousin, Nathan Leach.
His cell phone signals he has a message. It's a Google account request Leach doesn't understand. This is a picture of the actual message. It has Josh Powell's name on it. Leach says it was odd and that he had no idea who sent it. 2 hours later, Leach gets this. It's the same email we now know Powell's lawyer and some other family members received. 3 cryptic words: "I'm sorry, goodbye." Leach says he called his sister. They called Josh's brother, Michael Powell, and make the first frantic attempts to reach 911. They now know Josh may be in danger, but have no idea Charlie and Braden are about to arrive at their dad's home. When Leach hangs up the phone, this message is waiting. It's a transcription of a voice message. The transcription isn't clear, but it's clear enough Leach knows something is very wrong. Leach calls 911 in his county, but can't provide an address for Powell. He makes more calls to Michael Powell, Josh's brother, who says the message is odd and that Josh hasn't been talking about doing anything like this. Alina Powell, Josh's sister, is conferenced in on the call. Leach says she's in tears. He says he yells at her to hang up, call 911, and lead police to Powell's home. She does, he says, and the family waits. Then comes their answer. It's 3:40 in Texas, 1:40 at the now destroyed Washington home of Josh Powell. Leach gets pictures of the house, and 20 minutes later begins to get the full picture. His sister calls and confirms Charlie and Braden are gone. Leach calls his cousin's final actions, quote, "the most absolute horrid thing that could ever happen." But he also says Josh was terrorized and says he was a victim of a concentrated cyberbullying campaign. Leach says he's outraged by Powell's final act, but also outraged by the actions of those who, in his description, terrorized Josh Powell in the wake of Susan Powell's disappearance. Mark, Shauna, back to you.
All right. Roxanne, thank you very much. Too little, too late to try to get help over there before this all happened. So.